Hey everybody, Amelia here, and today I'm going to show you how to make a really fun design for a stool cover. This design is going to be for a stool cover that is about 12 or 13 inches in diameter, so a stool about this size. This is a very simple folding one, and as you can see, mine is pretty thin, and the stool cover is going to add a little bit of padding. But this design is also easily adjustable for a stool that's already padded and needs to be a little bit thicker with the cover on it. So to get started, you're going to need between 80 and 90 yards of a super bulky weight yarn. And for my design, you're gonna see me using this t-shirt yarn from Paintbox in mint green. So this is their recycled t-shirt cotton yarn. And this works really well, the t-shirt yarn does, because it is so stretchy. But you can also use any type of super bulky yarn. The other main thing you're gonna need is a 15mm hook. So let's get started. I'm gonna take you through all of the rounds of this pattern. There's not that many. And then I will come back and show you the finished design on this stool. To get started making our stool cover, we're going to need to get set up for the first row. Now, you can accomplish this by chaining a few stitches, and in the pattern, I recommend chaining 4. You could do 3 or 4 stitches, like so. And then once you have that, you could simply slip stitch to create the ring that you can work into for round 1. But if you are comfortable with it, I really recommend trying the magic circle for this stool cover for the beginning, because it's going to allow you to possibly cinch the middle of your stool cover a little bit closer. So to make a magic circle, I like to simply act like I'm making a slip knot, like so, but then leave this open, and that's it. That's our magic circle. Now, to do this for the stool cover, I recommend you leave a nice long tail. You're going to need it. And we can use this right here to head into round 1. Either way you set up for round 1 is going to include 10 half double crochet stitches. So I'm starting from the magic circle, which is basically an open slip knot, and I start by chaining 1. And from there, I'm going to half double crochet all of my 10 stitches into my loop. Okay, so I have my 10 stitches into my magic circle, and where the magic circle really comes in handy here is that I can just pull this closed nice and tightly, and I'm actually able to get my stitches so that there's no hole at all. I find this kind of difficult to do when using chain stitches alone, so this works out nicely for me. Now, once you're done with the round, all you need to do is slip stitch into the top of your first half double crochet stitch. And that completes round 1. I do want to note that at the beginning of every single row, there's a chain 1, and this does not count as a stitch. So since we did 10 half double crochet stitches in our first round, we have 10 stitches total counted for round number 1. Now we're going to move on to round number 2 in this project, and it's very simple. It starts with a chain 1, and then in every single stitch around this round, we're going to half double crochet 2 stitches. Starting right here, 1, 2. This is what you'll repeat in every other stitch as well to give you a total of 20 stitches. Finishing up round 2 now. And again, I'm going to slip stitch into the top of the first half double crochet stitch that I made, not into my chain 1, but in the top of my first counted stitch. Very good. Now moving into round 3, we have another very simple repeat. We're going to chain 1. We're going to half double crochet into the first stitch. And then we are going to half double crochet 2 into the next stitch. Okay, and that's the repeat that will continue. Half double crochet 1 into one stitch and then 2 in the next stitch. So you should end this round with a total of 30 stitches. And once again, when we're done, we will just slip stitch to close the round. Okay, so we have one more basic round before we get to some texture. For round 4, once again, we're going to chain 1. We're going to half double crochet 1 into each of the first 2 stitches, and then we're going to half double crochet 2 into the next stitch. So half double crochet 2, half double crochet 2 and 1. Repeat that all around, and then once again slip stitch into the top of your first counted stitch. Okay, so round number 5 is where things start to get a little bit interesting and where we're going to add some bobbles. Round number 5 starts with, again, a chain 1, and in the first 3 stitches of your repeat, we are still half double crocheting 1 in each stitch. So 1, 2, 3. But then our next step right here is going to be to add our bobble, and our bobble is very simply a double crochet 3 together. So this is where we start a double crochet stitch, and then without finishing it, we start another one, and then without finishing that one, we start a third. So now you should have all 3 of those stitches on your hook, plus the loop you already had, and you simply yarn over and finish all of that together. And then to finally finish this bobble, this double crochet 3 together, you yarn over and come through again. Okay, and since this yarn is so bulky, that creates a nice little bobble. And that's also the end of the repeat. So as soon as you yarn over and start your next repeat with a half double crochet, you can give it a little tug to kind of cinch that stitch down, and it makes the bobble pop. See, just like that. So again, here we would do 2 more half double crochet stitches, and then repeat with another double crochet 3 together. Okay. And that's the entire repeat. Once you go around, just slip stitch as we've been doing. Technically, we are not increasing any stitches in this round. The bobbles do push things out a little bit, but you're still going to end up with 40 stitches officially. However, the bobbles create an interesting dynamic that we're going to deal with in our next round. All right, so all of our bobbles are done for round 5, and it looks really nice. In round 6, though, we're going to run into a slightly different dynamic, like I mentioned, because of these bobbles. We're also going to start with only part of a repeat. So to get started, we still chain 1. You're going to half double crochet into your first stitch, and then we're going to add our increase here by half double crocheting 2. Your increases in this round should end up right in between your bobbles, so right here for this one. Now what we're going to do is we're going to half double crochet 4 and then half double crochet 2 in 1 again. That is the repeat we're going to repeat around most of the round. And what you'll see is that as we half double crochet around 1, 2, 3, right here, and 4, we are kind of making extra stitches. This is because, as you'll probably notice, the tops of the bobbles have an extra loop to them from where we had to yarn over and close them up in the previous round. And when you do this with smaller weight yarns, this smaller loop, which as you can see looks a little bit tighter right here, it can really disappear. But since this yarn is so bulky, it really shows up as what looks like a whole extra stitch. So we're going to work into it to keep our round nice and solid, and this is what's going to increase our stitch count by so much, because even though the bobbles technically only count as 1 stitch, working into both of these loops is like adding another increase in this round. And this is why when you're done with this round, you should have a total of 60 stitches. So once again, once you get to this round and you get started, the repeat is 4 half double crochet stitches and then 2 in 1, like so. And you're going to repeat that most of the way around. I will come back when we have just a little ways to go. Alright, so I've completed the repeat around most of round 6, and once you have gotten to this point, pattern says to half double crochet 3 more, since we did 1 at the beginning of our round, and then we're just going to slip stitch. 1, 2, 3, and it does look like a slightly bigger gap than I've had so far, but I'm just going to go into here and cinch it shut. And that's round 6. All right, I'm back from finishing round 6, which gave us a nice smooth edge again. Now, round number 7 is our second round of bobbles, and it also has a very simple repeat. We're going to start by chaining 1. If you want to center your bobbles a little bit better and they're not centered immediately, you can start the round with a slip stitch into the next top of a stitch just to center your bobbles, if you'd like to do that. So basically you can start in between your bobbles from round 5 and start the repeat wherever you want. So I'm going to do that since I was a little bit off center, and go ahead and restart here with my chain 1 and my bobble. And now I will half double crochet my 5 stitches. Alright, so that puts me pretty much in the middle for my next bobble, and that's the repeat that I'm going to use around the entire round, ending again with a slip stitch. Alright, now we're done with both of our bobble rows, and right now the diameter of the stool cover is as big as it needs to be for the top of about a 12-inch stool. So it's about 12 inches across, maybe just a tiny bit more. And now the few rounds that we have left are going to be what goes down the side of the stool and curves around to hug the bottom. I'm going to finish my round right here with the slip stitch. And if you were keeping count, this last round also technically had 60 stitches in it. We did not increase again, even though those bobbles kind of push everything out. And for this round, we're also still not going to increase, which means we're also going to make sure that we do not work into the little extra bit that we create at the top of our bobbles. So this next round is not going to be the same as round 6. We're not going to increase naturally at the top of our bobbles that way. Instead, what we're going to do is start by chaining 1, and we want to half double crochet 60 evenly around the round to keep the same number of stitches. So what I recommend you do is simply half double crochet 6 in between each bobble somehow, because there are 10 bobbles. Yep, 10 bobbles still. And so if we just do 6 between each one, it'll be very even. And in this round, you will also definitely see your work turn up if it hasn't already, but don't worry about that because obviously that's going to go down the side of the stool. So just starting, I'm going to half double crochet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then I'm right at the next bobble here, so I'm just going to skip the loop that's a little bit tighter that looks like a stitch. Technically isn't, but we worked into it last time. I'm just going to skip that, and in my next part here, I'm going to half double crochet 6 stitches again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you continue in this manner around the entire round, you should end up with 60 stitches and then just slip stitch into the top of your first one again. Okay, here we are finishing up round 9. And as you can see, this time my work is really turning up like a basket because we did not do any increases or any bobbles here. And the next round, if you don't need to add any more height to your stool cover, is going to be the last round. We're almost done. You could certainly keep working on your stool cover from this direction, but since this is supposed to be the top, I'm going to go ahead and turn it right side out. And it's really starting to take shape here. It looks like it's almost done. Now, this is the point where if you have not tested your stool cover yet, you really should go take it and put it on your stool and make sure, number 1, that you have enough width at the top, which this can still kind of stretch around the top if it needs to, and that this is going to be enough to go down the side of your stool top, however thick that is. So the stool that I'm putting this on is a very thin metal top stool that folds, and so this is plenty for me. I don't need any more than this. So if you have a very thin top stool or one that's just like the thin type of metal that I'm using, this should be enough, or maybe a thin wooden one. But if you have a padded stool, you may need to add 1 or even 2 more rows here, which would just be chaining 1, putting 1 stitch into every stitch, probably half double crocheting again, and then slip stitching it to close. That's all you would need to do if you need a little extra height. But if you don't need to add any more rows, then you can go on to round 9, and that will be your very last one. Okay, so to do our very last round, we are going to chain 1, and I'm actually going to turn around here because it's easier for me. So technically, I believe I'm working in the opposite direction now since I turned this right side out. It really doesn't matter how you do it, like which direction you go for this last round, but this is what works better for me. So again, we chain 1. We start with a half double crochet. And now we're going to chain 1 and skip 2 stitches. So I'm going to skip these 2 stitches. That's our repeat. And so the next half double crochet I do will be right here. See that? And this is going to really pull the stool cover in and create the border, the part on the inside that's going to wrap around the bottom and really keep everything in place, especially since this is a stretchy yarn. But even if you don't have a stretchy yarn, this is going to wrap around the bottom if you've sized your stool cover correctly. And you can also add a drawstring in these pieces at the end, these spaces, which I will show you. But for now, you just keep up the repeat of doing your half double crochet, chaining 1, and skipping 2 stitches. And this is going to take the stitch count of your rounds from 60, which we've had for the last several rounds, all the way down to 40. All right, here we are all done with round 9. What we have looks a lot like a pretty cool basket right now, but this is our stool cover upside down from the bottom, and here it is from the top. So what I'm just gonna do now is add another slip stitch or 2 to strengthen where this ends, and then I will snip it and bind it off. I've already double checked that this works really well on the stool. And you want to pull this nice and tight. And at this point, if you have a nice stretchy yarn, like this t-shirt yarn, you may not need to add anything else to the stool at all. However, if you feel like you need it, or if it just is something you want to do, you can add a drawstring of some kind and weave it in between these holes, these chain spaces that we created in round 9. I've done this here with a few more yards of my yarn that could easily go in and out here, like so. And then once you get it woven all the way around, you can tie it. But I really don't need that for this particular one because it works out so well with the stretchy yarn. So I'm not going to do all of that right now. All I'm going to do is take this end and weave it in a little bit more, and maybe try to weave this in a little bit more and trim it, and then I'll put it on my stool. And here's my finished version. It turned out really good, and as you can see, it is really easy to just pop these stool covers onto your stool, especially if they stretch. They go right on, and they look so cute when they're done. And as you can see, mine is hugging under here really well already with that stretch. But if you need to use a drawstring or some type of extra cord or elastic woven in between those chain spaces, then feel free to do that if you want. Thank you so much for making this design with me. I hope you enjoy it, and I would love to see pictures of your own versions. Bye!